There are two ways in which any government can proceed. One is a way based on what you and I would call a free society, which is enshrined right at the heart of the American Constitution. The other one is a way which allows only one view, both of economics and politics, in which almost everything is either owned or controlled by the state, including the media, including the ideas, including freedom of discussion and everything. There is no freedom of discussion. Now, between those two ways, the free society and the totally controlled society, there are, of course, variations. I think what we've learned in Britain is that we've gradually, over the last certainly 12 or 13 years, with perhaps a little interruption, gone slowly further and further away from the free society towards something else. At the same time, we've found, I don't find it strange, but some other people do, that we have stopped creating wealth. We've had a large number of increasing restrictions. And you've been finding two things. First, that we are more and more concentrating on redistributing the wealth we've got, rather than creating any more. To create more, you need a slightly freer society, and you need an incentive society. Naturally, when I see that happening, I look with very great alarm to societies which have gone even further left. That is, they've tried to redistribute even more, and haven't had the incentives for people working hard on their own account, doing well for their families, and often then being able to create jobs for others. They've produced a much more prosperous society than we have.
We fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio. And this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. I wanted to do this piece, Jerome Corsi. This, to my mind, is an example of downright thuggery that's gone on for nearly 2 years in the United States. Being an outsider and seeing this spectacle unfold, almost in secret, with barely a word, let alone a statement, leaked. But, and this is the big but, innuendo after innuendo was leaked. And we all saw how Manafort was treated by the Mueller witch hunt. And yes, it was a witch hunt. President Trump was and is correct, to the extent that you would have thought by their actions that he was public enemy number one. And then I come on to the disgraceful episode of Roger Stone, whose house in Florida, as we all know, was raided in the middle of the night by what could only be described as a SWAT team. On and on it goes. Their actions, that being of law enforcement against ordinary citizens, has been frankly shocking. It reminds me more of those old black and white movies and newsreels of Elliot, Ness and Al Capone. This heavy-handed technique and tactic was done clearly for one reason, and one reason alone. And this should scare everybody, not just Americans, everybody, to frighten people, innocent people, into lying and perjuring themselves so these thugs, these legal thugs, can get proof against the President of the United States. It did not matter that it was not true, just that they had it said, in their eyes, clearly would be good enough. I can only speak personally. 2 things got me. No, that's not true. Actually, it's 3. There are 3 things that got me. Well, even that's not true. A lot of things got me. But I'll stick with the 3 for now. Here's the first. The indicting of Army Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who had the role of National Security Advisor, over what appears to be nothing more than actually spying on him, with what now appears to be an illegal wiretap, catching him out on an inexact recall of something he said, is to my mind obscene. They're trying to say it's other aspects, but that's the real reason, because they were listening in on him. Nothing more, nothing less. The second one that really gets my goat, and I referred to it earlier, is that disgusting and disturbing prosecuting of Paul Manafort. These actions were civil actions and never required the attention to detail. that they placed on him. What do I mean by that? Well, why? Why was and is this guy being confined to a cell for 24 hours a day? Why are people not up in arms about this? I just don't get it. He's being treated worse than a 9/11 terrorist. My answer, and it's only my answer, is because they thought he would flip on the President of the United States, as his lawyer did. Oh, and by the way, whatever happened to attorney-client privilege? How can anyone moving forward trust any lawyer with their most intimate and personal information? If I was Donald Trump, I'd sue that guy, and he should be struck off as well. He should be just struck off for doing that. But crickets. When a group of supposedly authorized thugs can raid a lawyer's office and take anything they want, there's something that really stinks in Denmark, isn't there? Then we come to number 3. Roger Stone, a private individual, flamboyant character, and appears to be a very likeable guy by all accounts. Treated worse than a drug lord. Taken down in the middle of the night. Yet again, as I said before, unfriggin' believable. Finally, we come to the fiasco of Jerome Corsi. Here's the clip from Fox and Friends.
Investigation Friday and recommended no new indictments. Our next guest says he feels vindicated.
Last year, Jerome Corsi was accused of lying under oath to Mueller's investigators. He refused a plea deal, though. It would have required him to plead guilty to perjury. In the end, he was not indicted. Joining us now, Jerome Corsi, author of Silent No More, How I Became a Political Prisoner of Mueller's Witch Hunt. Jerome, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
So first, let's just get your reaction to the Mueller probe finally wrapping up with no indictments coming down.
Well, first of all, I'm very pleased, of course, that I'm not indicted. And I feel vindicated because I did refuse to accept what I consider to be a fraudulent plea deal that I was offered. I went in to cooperate. We spent 40 hours with Mueller. I gave them my laptops, my computers. I helped Quantico download my emails with double verification, worked with them on the phone. I went in to cooperate. But from moment one, they treat you like a criminal. And this plea deal, I mean, this is a bully. They were bullying me. They gave me a plea deal and said, you know, one count, the first day memory mistake, that they allowed me to amend the testimony. But the plea did not reflect the amended testimony. And I would not stand before a judge and God and say I committed a crime I didn't. I did not give them false information that I knew to be false on material subjects in order to deceive them. I tried to tell them the truth. These thugs offered me a fraudulent plea deal and I refused it.
You call them thugs. Strong word, obviously. Back that up by explaining, did you believe that Mueller's team was trying to get you to lie about the president?
Yes, they were trying to coerce me into testimony. They were convinced, and that's the whole point. See, how can you get a plea deal and then they don't charge you? They couldn't approve that plea deal. They wanted to bully me into being a criminal when I'm not and going to jail. This is not America. It's not justice. And they were constantly going after my contact with Julian Assange. I didn't have any contact. 20 hours.
So what were they saying? Were they saying Assange wanted you to do this? The president, what were the kind of tactics?
Sure. They had, what they had, by the way, this book, Silent No More, goes into it. You're, first of all, in a closed-in conference room, an unmarked FBI building, facing 3 prosecutors, 6 to 9 FBI. You can't even leave the room to go to the restroom without being accompanied by the FBI.
Were you there with a lawyer?
With my attorney facing all this army for 6 to 8 hours a day, for 6 days. And what they do is constantly, they say, well, you know, want to know Roger Stone, Julian Assange. They wanted me to connect Roger Stone to Assange. Because in July 2016, my wife and I took a trip. We had our 25th wedding anniversary. We were in Italy. And I figured out on my own that Julian Assange had Podesta's emails. And he was going to drop them in October. And I knew even precisely how he was going to do it. I was ascribing these to people. So the special prosecutor said, you had to have contact with Assange. You're lying to us. And then they badger you. They use all these kinds of psychological techniques to wear you down. Silent No More, I wrote while I was going through this psychological torment. And the whole purpose of the book is it's the basis to validate that I've got a legitimate claim in federal court for, you know, several $100 million, a civil suit against Mueller for, I think, prosecutorial abuse.
So what's next for you now that you feel vindicated? You've rejected this plea deal. You have a book to explain what your side of the story in this case. How do you move forward now with the accountability and how you feel about the investigation wrapping up?
Well, first of all, it destroys your life. I mean, I now have no job, no income, no monthly income. You get abandoned by everyone. Tens of thousands of dollars of legal expenses. The family going through, 7 months. Is dad going to prison? Is the FBI going to show up at the front door and break down the door and take you away? Well, I don't know. Waking up at 3 a.m. You go through absolutely a nightmare. And they intend to put you through this nightmare because they kept saying, you're lying to us. I'm not lying. I never had any contact with Assange. And by the way, if I had been lying, they would have indicted me.
So what do you think happens to Roger Stone because he was indicted?
Well, that's going to be Roger's case. And with a gag order, I'm pretty reluctant to talk about it. I think they used some of my emails as person number 1 in his case. And if they subpoena me, I'll testify. But I'm reluctant to say anything about Roger's case given the gag order on that case.
Okay. So where do you see this going forward in terms of the other side of Congress now saying from the Republican side that they want to investigate the abuses that allegedly went on with not only the Mueller investigation but at the FBI during the 2016 presidential election?
It's going to be continuing. I'm going to now have all the House and Senate and everybody. This is not going to stop. The turning point for me when I was trying to decide to accept the plea deal or not, my wife woke up one morning and she said, I'd rather visit you in prison for the rest of your life than have you not be the man I married. And when she said that, I realized that was a turning point, that if my wife could accept that, I could not swear before a federal judge that I committed a crime I didn't. And we told Mueller to take a hike. That day I expected I'd be indicted. It was bullying me from the beginning. Coercive techniques of interrogation.
So you stood up, though, and in the end, you were not indicted. Jerome Corsi, good luck with the book, and we appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Well, there it is. Jerome Corsi. This guy is not connected to Julian Assange. They tried to bully and cajole, whatever word you want to use, to lie. That's right, to lie. We don't have something on the president, so make it up. You just heard in Jerome Corsi's own words on Fox and Friends his own account of the special counsel's tactics and actions. I'm sure, like me, you're shocked to hear what you heard. But I think just one question needs to be asked. It's simple. Well, sort of. Is this right and proper and in an impartial way to conduct an investigation in the United States? As far as I can see, all that was left out was him being tied to a chair and being beaten with a wet towel. That's the only thing left out. And finally, I like to put this bit in at the end because it annoys so many people. What about Hillary Clinton? What about her obstruction of justice, holding classified information on an unclassified server, destroying of equipment and data? How's that investigation going? Do you think that if, God forbid, Hillary had won that election, that there would have been an investigation into her obstruction of justice and collusion in her campaign? Maybe that's a rhetorical question. And that's my comment. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. We're also on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on these links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio, and click on the like button. And you can hear a review of our morning moments on WHBJ-DB, News, Talk, Radio on Spreaker.com. Join us and many others. And you can find all our podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.